it also has an impact on issues of housing, because once you now have a particular number of people living within a small house, there is pressure to say they can no longer live with dignity in that house. And that then, in some instances, start resulting in teenagers or those that may have just attained adulthood wanting to move out of their family homes in order to have their own homes for purposes of space and privacy. Once that happens, it also means the services that are offered by the state are now stretched. In most instances, you'll find that because of the process of applying for and being granted the RDP house is not a short process, they might end up constructing shacks. Once they construct shacks, there are no services there are no roads, there is no electricity, and that has what then happens thereafter. This is another picture of a learner who, after returning from school, has to go and fetch water, either for cooking, for washing, or even washing themselves. And it might mean that by the time they have to sit and study and do things, they are already tired because of the distance they may have traveled to go and collect water. Looks like it's closing again. We also have a slide. I'm hoping honorable members have opened the next slide. Basically, it is reflecting the housing situation in an urban area, where you find that there are shacks. Some of those shacks have burnt down, and they are in an area that, when you look at them, is not supposed to be used for residing people. And whilst the question might be, maybe that has got to do with human settlements, the reality is that COGTA, through municipalities, is the one that designates places where people may reside. Municipalities are the ones that indicate what place is used for business, what place is designated for human settlement, what place may be assigned to constructing a hospital, a clinic, a school, and so on. So it therefore means that there is a responsibility that COGTA has to play. Some of these issues, members did raise them yesterday. How are people settled in urban areas, including the areas under Amakosi? Yesterday, when the department presented their strategic plan, they touched on the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And the slide that the one prior that, before that one. Thank you. The slide that is reflecting, if you look at the pictures, they tell a lot of stories. SDG 1 talks about ending poverty. And the pictures that are reflecting here show that there is a lot of distance to be covered. Yes, there is a lot that the government has done, but we are now experiencing the issues of urban poverty, where people come from the rural areas in order to be nearer to where they perceive the opportunities for being employed exist. And they do not get the jobs in the numbers by which they come to urban areas. And that results in those pockets of urban poverty where people have to build the shacks. They just go into any open area, construct their shacks, and when the government says you cannot build there, they take to the streets. SDG 6 talk about clean water and sanitation, but the picture that we are reflecting here does show that we are still experiencing the risk to availability of clean water as a result of how we manage waste, as a result of the lack of consistency in some instances by municipalities in collecting and disposing of waste in the correct manner, as a result of the people who are staying in these areas being the ones that litter and then turn around and say, what is the government doing? SDG 7 talks about affordable and clean energy. We are seeing air pollution in terms of the stats that are appearing on the top left picture, where some companies are not yet embracing and utilizing means to ensure that the air is not polluted. SDG 8 talk about decent work and economic growth, and I've touched on that. SDG 9 speaks to infrastructure, industrialization, and innovation. The picture that you are seeing is not showing us that. The reduction of inequality, the fact that people have to build shacks, show that there is still a lot of social inequality amongst our community as a consequence of people not getting jobs, and also as a consequence of the government not yet providing opportunities for jobs in rural areas so that people do not necessarily have to go to urban areas. The slide also refers to SDG 11, the Sustainable Cities and Communities, which is a picture that is not reflected in this slide, and the issues of climate action is over. And the issues of climate action. What is reflecting here? Deforestation is one of the contributors towards the issues of climate change. The air pollution, the pollution by plastics, those are all the issues that the committee should be worried about. Can we then move to the next slide? Purposely, I've titled the slide as what does it have to do with Human Settlements Committee? Because when one looks at it, one just sees the shape. Is a responsibility for COGTA. What underlies this slide is saying, Chair, that in some instances there is a need for committees to work in a coordinated approach. When we look at these issues, we cannot just say it's human settlements and leave it there. We also cannot say it's COGTA and leave it there, which is why the chairperson of committees, when they were having their own workshops, they indicated that in the reports that are expected from chairpersons, which are indicating what is being dealt with at various committees, committees may have to propose areas where joint oversight initiatives need to be held. And that is what this is basically about. Can we move to the next one? And this picture, as a consequence of the inequalities where people have to construct sheds, reflects electricity that is being stolen. And this happens throughout the country. have had ESCOM proposing a 36% electricity rate hike, which in their request will be implemented as of 2026. Part of the contributory factors is this electricity that is being stolen, that ESCOM cannot get people to pay for. And the members seated around here and the colleagues then have to bear the brunt of that debt that is uncollected through these electricity tariff hikes. Basically, it means those that are able to pay, they must pay for that electricity that ESCOM is not collecting. Is this not a role where the committee can play to ensure that there is collection so that there is mitigated hikes of the electricity tariffs? Can we move to the next one? The next slide is then talking about what the NDP is premised on in terms of it to be successfully implemented and the goals of the NDP being achieved. Firstly, the NDP itself, when constructed, it was understood that it is a working document, which means that even though there are targets, the possibility was that some of the targets will have been achieved prior to 2030. But some of the targets may have to be adjusted so that they are then realized beyond 2030. The National Development Plan was adopted by the country in 2011, and this is the last term before 2030. Basically, that means that the work of the legislature this term should be saying largely where are we in terms of realizing the goals and the targets that the NDP is reflecting. The induction, when there were presentations by various speakers, they were talking of the outcomes forecast oversight, where we need to be now saying where are we, what is the impact on the lives of the people, what are the lived realities and experiences of the people of KwaZulu-Natal. Can we move to? I do not need to say much about this picture, but it says a lot about the extent to which the people of the province are satisfied or not satisfied about government. The sad story about this picture and the ones after this picture is that the members of the public will look at the elected representatives. When they take to streets, they look at the elected representatives. Yet the reality is that it is not the MEC that will go and construct the house. The MEC will determine policy. The MEC will indicate what it is that needs to be delivered, and the employees are the ones that are expected to practically do all this work. But when people go to streets, it is yourselves as honorable members that are vilified and called all kinds of names. The legislature has therefore, move to the next one, has therefore put through the Constitution a role that you need to be playing as members. Before I get to that role, I just want to speak to this last picture. The lady there, the old lady, was 80 years old when she passed on in 2018. She had never realized living in a proper house. So as she passed on, she still had not attained her dignity. Yet, she had received the letter in 2018 that was committing that she was going to get the house. However, that letter was not an indication that the house is now going to be concluded in terms of building. Her house had been concluded years before and had been issued in 2016, which is 2 years before she passed on. However, a councillor chose to give that house to his stepdaughter, who was 23 years old, resulting in the old lady dying 2 years later with the letter that said she was going to move into the RDP house. That is the role that as elected representatives in this committee have to play in terms of tracking processes of government, whether they are being adhered to, whether in its action government is resulting in betterment of the lived experiences of the people of KwaZulu-Natal. Can we move to the next? These are various institutions that support democracy. We have had commissions after commissions, we have had investigations being conducted in South Africa. And one loud question that we had been asked, directly or indirectly, was a question that said, where was the legislature when all these things were happening? Decades ago, we used to ask our colleagues from Limpopo, when 5 government departments went under administration, we were saying to our colleagues, but where was your legislature? Because at the back of our minds, we were positioning the legislature centrally in terms of ensuring that service delivery does take place timeously, in line with the budget, and result in the lived experiences of the people being better than they were prior. Can we move to the next slide? Therefore, honorable members, the legislature is charged with the constitutional responsibility to perform oversight. And that work is done through the House and is also assigned to various committees. And we have the standing committees, we have the portfolio committees, the ad hoc committees that are established to do a particular work, after which they then get disestablished. And we have those committees that are inward looking in terms of the arrangements of the legislature, like Rules Committee, Program Committee, Ethics Committee, and so on. All those committees are meant to ensure that the work of the legislature is very clear in how it gets undertaken. We are coming from the general elections period. Leading to general elections, all political parties and independent candidates presented manifestos, the commitments that were saying, if you elect us, this is what you are going to prioritize in terms of delivering for the people of KwaZulu-Natal and the country. For us that were listening to the various manifestos, what was similar with all of them is that they had the interest of the people of South Africa at heart. What differed were the areas of priority or areas of emphasis. And all of them were speaking to what the NDP already espouses. Therefore, as part of the process, when the committee plays its oversight work, what the committee is actually overseeing indirectly is the winning manifesto, which the government will have converted into government policy. And it then gets overseen through the House and committees, so that the promises that were made are delivered. And there are tools that the legislature and the committees use in order to monitor delivery, and those will be the laws that the legislature and parliament will have passed, tracking how those laws are being implemented. The resolutions taken by the legislature and the House and various committees and structures, which are aimed at giving feedback to the executive and pointing the executive on areas where they need to correct or introduce new initiatives. And once that is done, the expectation is that it should then enhance service delivery. The next slide is speaking to the same issues that I've touched on, basically indicating this press again. The government policy or the strategic plans and APPs, as has been happening yesterday. The committee was presented with the APP, and the HOD took the committee through the strategic plan. That plan ordinarily is the property that is being presented before the legislature, before the House. However, the House has given the mandate to this committee to be seized with consideration of that plan. However, prior to the committee sitting and discussing that plan, the colleagues yesterday presented their analysis on the APP and the budget of the department. That is the process, how we are executing it in support of the committee. The administrative support, they do the analysis. Those plans are referred, if I may use that term loosely, to the administrative support. And the administrative support will then undertake the analysis of all those plans. And as part of analysis, they might undertake the verification visits to some projects that the committee will be briefed on. Once that has been done, the administration, which is there in the green box, I hope I'm saying the color correctly, the administration will then come back to the committee and brief the committee, which is what is in the red box. This is an area that has been emphasized, that committees prior engaging with the department, they must receive the briefing. And the legislature has made available the technical support, the colleagues that I am with here. That is what we exist to do for the committee. To analyze, because we understand members sit in a variety of committees, they will not have time to do that analysis. Also, the manner in which those reports are crafted from the department does require that a whole lot of time is spent on them going through those reports with a fine-tooth comb in terms of making use of the tools of analysis that the colleagues usually make use of. Once the committee has been briefed, the committee will engage with the department, and after engaging with the department, the committee is expected to craft the report. When the committee has dealt with the quarterly report of a department, verified the report of the department through an oversight visit, then the committee is expected to craft a report with observations and with recommendations to the House. And that report might be debated the committee will have to request the group parliament, the report is being tabled, that we are requesting that this particular report be debated. The purpose of tabling the committee reports back in the House is that members are not serving in all the 23 committees of the legislature. A member might serve in 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 committees, which means that through the reports being shared back in the House, then the member gets to know what is happening in all the portfolios, noting that any single member represents a constituent that requires to know about everything. Therefore, it is important that all committee reports are tabled in the House. This chairperson is what is making my slides to be more than 30. So I will not go into detail when I get to those slides because I've spent time here explaining that. Can we move to the next slide? And the previous one? This is what oversight is expected to result in. Access to water. It might not be the tap inside your house, but there must be water within the vicinity. That child, you know that they do not travel for 500 meters before they get water. It is far less than that because it is within the community, right next to where people are staying. And that water is flowing when pumped, which means water used for cooking is clean. People are able to wash their clothes. They are able to wash themselves. Government, as influenced also through oversight, should be resulting in self-sustainability in terms of our communities. We can see old mama there tending to their field, and the expectation that the legislature must have is that yes, it might be subsistence farming, which means they plant and are able to eat, but that is extra. Are they able to have a market for it? Government has supported a number of subsistence farmers and a number of communities so that they are able to plant, so that they are able to have different types of companies. But where the legislature needs to play a role, in addition to that they have been supported, is whether those people do have the market. Are they able to sell their produce so that it doesn't get spoiled ihleli emasimini or ihleli emakhaya? We have the traditional leadership, which is a role over which this committee plays oversight. This province is one of the provinces that has got traditional leaders and is the province that has got the most traditional leaders. Yesterday, the department did present, amongst others, Uholelwa Induna and the back pay of Izinduna. The government pays the employees, the government pays members. But beyond that is the expectation that there is work that is being done by those people that the government pays. We do have, as an example, the job profile of a member. We also have a job profile of a speaker of the legislature. We have a job profile for each of us. Are we certain as this committee that we know what Induna does in support of Isizwe and in support of Inkosi? I will leave that question unanswered. And the last one is a reflection of the homesteads that we have in our rural areas. as we move around the province, we will see that there are RDP houses that are being constructed on Emakhaya. But where I want to focus on is this program of the department is including Zamakos. Where I grew up as the son to my father, I cannot use my father's bedroom. What is the implication of the program of Zamakos when we look at the cultural practices? I will also not answer the question. Can we move to the next slide? The legislature sees itself as an activist, people-centered legislature. And activist speaks to the manner in which the legislature is doing its work, not waiting to be triggered, always looking out for how things can be improved for the lives of the people, and at all times ensuring that people are what drives the work of the legislature at all times. And the programs of the legislature are speaking to deepening democracy, ensuring that people are able to engage with individual members of the legislature, with the various structures of the legislature, with the House. And those are the mandates that are given through that vision and the mission statement, which a committee is expected to execute. Committees are given by the Constitution and the House the role of oversight over the exercise of executive authority. I want to use that terminology which is in the Constitution today. Oversight over the exercise of executive authority, which basically means that you are tracking, checking, monitoring how the MPC and the department are executing their functions, how they are making use of the powers assigned to them. For this committee, that interpretation becomes important because some of the questions that were coming up yesterday, looking at the work of municipalities and the role that the committee can play in terms of oversight. Strictly speaking, or technically speaking, oversight over municipalities resides with the NPC, since municipalities are a different sphere of government. That is why I wanted to talk about what the Constitution actually says, exercise oversight over exercise of executive authority. Because that means that in order for this committee to be able to reach the municipalities, that has to be through the NPC. We do have the programs that the legislature has put in place, interpreting the legislation, amongst others, the Municipal Systems Act, Section 47, and the Municipal Finance Management Act, Section 132. I will touch on that when I present the AOP of the committee. Can we move to the next slide? I will not dwell on this one, Chair. Basically, all that I've said just means that there has to be a closer working relationship between the committee and the community so that you are able to hear what the needs of the communities are and you are able to address those with the executive. The legislature, as part of the previous term, engaged on the e-governance approach, which basically means what is happening here is in fulfillment of that. We are not seeing files and loads of paper. because the legislature has provided the tools of trade for ease of circulation of information. And that is what is part of the strategic approach, even this time, to ensure that we go paperless and do not contribute as much in terms of deforestation and an impact on our environment. Can you the next slide? Please. These basically are the tools that are available to perform oversight and relevant for the committee. Are the committee inquiries, the oversight visits, municipal oversight, public participation, stakeholders engagement, functionality programs. However, all of these tools can be utilized. Let me make use of questions and interpellations. As a result of what a member of the public may raise with the elected representative, you might want to gain more insight on that particular matter. And as a member, you are then allowed to write a question, send it to the MPC and say, this is what is being reported by the community that relates to your portfolio. Please give us the correct information, or give us the details, or give us data around this particular matter. And once you've written to the MPC, the standing rules determine the time period by when a written question must be responded to. What then occurs is that the Speaker's office tracks if the MPCs are responding to the written questions. And at a certain time, if there are no responses, those questions will then be converted to questions for oral response. That is where the MPC is now forced to stand in the House and respond, because they will have missed the opportunity when it was there to respond in writing just to the particular member. But in some instances, there are questions for oral response that are posed in the House as questions for oral response. Members can then make use of the engagements at this committee to further gain insight from the department through the questions. The other one is the issue of motions. Members are now used to raising motions during the sittings. The information that members gain out of the engagements can be used to raise a motion. If a member identifies that there is a matter that might require a debate, the member may raise that as a motion, and it then will be dependent on the party when it is the turn of that party, whether the motion used by member A or member B is the one that will be debated, and that will be determined by the party. I will not touch on the other tools, but they are there available for the legislature. Basically, what the committee is expected to do through oversight work, you are following after the budget. You are tracking whether the budget that you passed is being used for the things that you passed it to do. Is it delivering the priorities that the department presented in their APP and strategic plan? That is why the questions that members were posing yesterday were very pertinent in as far as they relate to the adjustments and the changes that are experienced in the APPs. What then becomes of the budget? Or if the budget is adjusted, what then is the impact on the various outputs or the targets that were reflected in the APPs? Once those priorities are determined and the members pass the budget in order to fund work towards delivery of those, the inputs being the budget, being the employees, being the cars that are used to do work, being the tools of trade that the department may purchase in order for work to be done, must all be put towards delivering those priorities and nothing else. Just to make use of a simple example, the Department of COGTA, let me take COGTA, decides that in the area under Impossible, we must build a school because that traditional community does not have a school. The Department of COGTA continues and constructs the school. Beautiful school. They get the educators, they pay them, the learners benefit from the school. The reality is that constructing schools is not the mandate of the Department of COGTA. We have a Department of Education that is given funding to construct schools. COGTA will have done something else with that budget, something within their mandate. So that is what I mean to say the inputs and outputs should all be moving towards delivery of the priority or the mandate of the department. Can we move to the next slide? I think the next slide is the next one is Chair. I will not take more than 3 minutes. We have the procedures that are there in the committee and the practices. And we are provided in terms of our standing rules powers to summon people to either to come in person to answer questions or to produce documents. That is applied where people are not cooperating. Ordinarily, they get invited and they come to the committee meetings. Can we move to the next one? I've touched on the petitions as one of the tools and the issues of lawmaking and oversight. I've touched on that. Can we move? Therefore, the process that we have in the legislature is that a committee chairperson, firstly, is the spokesperson for the committee. On matters that the committee will have dealt with and agreed on or not agreed on, the chairperson is the one that officially expresses those. Whether through a report that is read by the chairperson in the House or to the media. However, that does not mean that a member who is in the committee, who is from a political party, even if that member is from the same party that the chairperson comes from, may not express their party political position. Parties are still allowed to express their party political positions on matters. However, what needs to be clear is that when a member does that, they must not pass it off as if they are expressing the view of the committee. That is basically what is meant there. Secondly, the chairperson, as the person responsible for the work of the committee, is expected to engage with the administrative team in order to plan for the committee activities, to track in preparation for committee activities whether the reports are being received, and therefore ensure that they get analyzed and prepare that members will be given those documents, they will be briefed on those documents, they will be given the analysis. Can we then move to the next one? Next. I've touched on the first part, that members are representing their political duties in the committee. Having said that, I do need to indicate that the expectation is that as you are members of the one committee, partisanship will actually defeat the purpose of why you are here as a committee that plays oversight. If the department has not delivered a service delivery A, and it is clear, supported by facts, it becomes very difficult for any member to say, no, the department has delivered. And where the department has not delivered, the expectation is that all members should be engaging with the department so that the department is able to then come up with the turnaround strategy, come up with corrective measures so that the department ends up delivering. Basically, crudely speaking, I'm saying you may not defend a department when they've not delivered, simply because you are being party political. That's what I was saying. The expectation is that members, therefore, when they are given documents, should go through those in preparation for the engagements and should participate in the committee activities. We are expected to keep records of attendance. And in some instances, we get the media requesting from the secretary and from the speaker the attendance registers so that maybe they will have targeted Honorable Vena and they want to see if Vena is attending meetings. Next moment you see in the newspapers, Vena gets paid for sitting at home. And it doesn't reflect well on honorable members. Therefore, members are expected to attend activities of the committee. Where a member is unable to attend, a written apology must be sent to the committee coordinator prior to the meeting. And where possible, again, a substitute may be appointed by the whip to fill in for the member. Can we move to the next slide? I've touched on that. The next one. I think I'm now at the last one that I need to touch on, Chair. The activities of the committee are determined by the legislature calendar. The calendar is structured such that the clashes are eliminated, or if they are there, they are minimal. If a committee wants to get any other slot, the reality is that there is a committee falling within the same cluster with which there will be a clash of membership. So when Honorable Kunene and Honorable Mahlaba say we cannot support this committee having the extra meeting on this day, that is what they are mainly looking at to avoid those clashes. So, which is why it is important for the committee when they need an extra slot to make the request and not issue notices and then make a request when the notices are already out, because there are still those considerations. The committee also works according to the budget. The cluster manager keeps tabs of the budget, and the expectation is that the chairperson must always be in the know. So, Honorable Chair, you may engage the cluster manager to get the printouts, even if it is monthly, to see how much has been spent by the committee at any particular time. That will assist also in terms of the planning of work moving forward. Can we see? Yeah, I've touched on that. The last one is the issue of reporting, Chair, which I did touch on. Committees are all expected to report in the House, and we get audited on that. Auditor General does audit committee performance. The challenge that we had towards the end of the term is that this team was continuing analyzing the performance reports from the department. But because a decision had been taken to scale down on activities, we were unable to take those analysis reports before the committee. And when we said to the AG, no, we've achieved, we've analyzed the documents, the AG just said, can we see them where the committee was briefed and what the committee said about the quarterly report? Then we have to say, no, on that one, scaling down was in effect, the AG said, no, then you did not achieve. You may have done the work administratively, but if the members have not had an opportunity to make use of the work that you've done, then you've not achieved the work. Chair, let me end it here and thank you very much. So I to take too long.
I just have two questions and I'm going to allow members to just raise any points of clarity. My first question is, whose decision was it to scale down? Was that a committee decision or a legislative decision? The second question is, from yesterday's presentation, we were told that the APP was aligned to the NDP and the PGDP. But when we looked at the budget, we saw that a large portion of the budget was allocated to staffing. And so my concern is, with the little that is left over for oversight of municipalities, the other programs, and with the reprioritization, does that now not affect our APP and whether we are still aligned to the NDP and the PGDP? Obviously, if we are going to be reprioritizing, there's going to be some changes that will now affect whether we are really aligned to the NDP and the PGDP. So maybe you can answer that. Members, is there anyone that needs clarity on the mandate? Anything that you're unsure that you need to raise here? Honorable Kanene?
Greetings to you, Honorable Chairman, member of support staff, honorable members. Mr. Nsuza told about the MSCP exercising an oversight of municipalities. How do you differentiate that role to the role played by the council itself to oversee the municipality?
Is there anyone else before Mr. Nzuza responds? Over to you, Mr. Nzuza.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. The scaling down decision was an institutional decision taken through the program committee. That has been what has been happening each time we approach the elections, be it the local government or the general elections. Mainly it aims at ensuring that members are able to undertake the political work that is attached to the elections. And hence, members will see that whenever there are by-elections, there will not be legislative activities as long as those by-elections are maybe more than one ward in the province. So it acknowledges that members are still members of their own political parties and must be able to attend to the political work pertaining to the by-elections. Chair, the second point regarding the issue of the alignment between the NDP and the PGDP and the departmental APP. At this stage, simply because the APP was received late, the team has not been able to have time to thoroughly go through it. It actually was received 2 nights ago, just at the evening before we started this workshop. That is what the team is still going to do and track that alignment, whether there are any changes. Generally, Chair, this is still the final year of the previous strategic plan. However, after the elections, when we get the new political leadership, there might be some areas that are changed. That is what the team then will be checking, whether the extent to which there has been some changes in the APPs. And at the next meeting, then the team will be able to present on that matter. The issue of the oversight of municipalities, the legislation provides the Municipal Systems Act does provide for both the executive and legislative function within the same municipality, which makes what Honorable Ndimande is saying to be true, that the councillors, they do play oversight over the municipality. But further than that, the Constitution still assigns the responsibility of oversight over local government to the provincial NEC. Hence, the various pieces of legislation will expect the NEC to track performance of municipalities, to report at the legislature on the performance of municipalities, to intervene in the municipalities. Those are all the oversight activities that are played by the NEC. And the various specific clauses, I think at some stage when we have time for the next session, we might need to go to the legislation and say what are the oversight responsibilities that are reflected in those pieces of legislation. One may talk about MFMA, for an example. Whilst it says under section 29 to 132, the municipal manager must table in the legislature the report on how the municipality has considered their own annual report. It then says the MPC must track compliance with that same clause, whether it has been complied with. It's the same, the Municipal Systems Act, section 47. So the actual oversight role is not strictly assigned to one structure when we are looking at municipalities. There are also responsibilities that are assigned to national sphere of government that also are speaking to oversight of municipalities. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Nzuza. I think we'll move on to the budget information matrix. Mr. Tumere.
It's from the email that was sent to the group to say, isn't at the bottom to the right. Yes. This one, so just go up, please. Yes, that one. And then open the Excel spreadsheet after that. the members.
So if you see that last email, it's the same one with the link.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm good to go. Good morning to you, Honorable Chairperson. Good morning to you, honorable members, my colleagues in the legislature. Honorable members, the presentation that I'm going to do today, it's called the Budget Information Matrices. And then the Budget Information Matrices, honorable members, I'll explain to you what it is. It comes from what we call the Sector Oversight Model, which is a model that governs the activities of the Portfolio Committee. Tells us how should we, as analysts, go about performing our analysis and our work. So it's coming from the Sector Oversight Model. And then the budget matrices, honorable members, on slide 2. What is it actually, honorable members? I'll just summarize and put it in layman's terms. So as a Portfolio Committee, honorable Chairperson and honorable members, we want a document or a database where we can record all of our work actually, or record speeches that come through to us, record the budget documents that come to us, and anything that pertains to the Department of COGTA that will be of assistance to us as a Portfolio Committee to undertake our oversight role. As Mr. Zuza spoke about that, he spoke about the issue of the fact that the document needs to assist us with the work because we need to go on the ground, get to see. So on that slide, it says it's an Excel workbook. Reason why we say it's an Excel workbook, currently we have it on an Excel spreadsheet. I'll show you the Excel spreadsheet, and then it's populated with all the data that relates to Department of COGTA. And then, as I said, it can be used for oversight purposes. Next slide, please. And then, according to the Sector Oversight Model, the book that I showed you, it's a second pillar. So the Sector Oversight Model, it tells us it's got 3 pillars: budget citing model, list model, and then it's got a toolkit. I won't go into detail, it's too technical, but as I said, it captures all the relevant data. Next slide, please. Yeah, this slide is important. So why do they exist, honorable Chairperson? We just spoke a few minutes ago about the alignment. This is where we're going to see the track of, use it as a tool to track the alignment between the NDP and all the way to IDPs and all of that, since we're dealing with municipalities. And then, as it says there, on the third line, on the first paragraph, we're going to be, it enables the committee to trace the consistency of these grants from national all the way to provincial, because they are founded upon the principle of consistency of information. So it will satisfy, or it will assist us, honorable members, as you said, that you want to see the consistency through the NDP, PGDP, all the way down to the final speech, and then the SONA, the State of Nation Address, all the way down. Then, next slide, please. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. I just want, I think, to make it easy for members. Slide 7. Okay, slide 7, yes. So this is how it looks like. I'll open an Excel spreadsheet and show it to you so that you can understand it better. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, as I've stated earlier on, it will assist us in taking decisions on the department because we need to see everything on that spreadsheet that is going on about or that leads to the department. And then also it will assist us to see the past because this is what happens with this document. We're going to have it on a yearly basis, and then when we have a yearly basis, we're going to have over the term 5 years, which means it's 5 documents. And then you can be able to go to any financial year and say, I want to see what the department has said, and maybe on the budget speech of 22-23 financial year. And then when you look at that, you can be able to compare it to maybe 25-26 financial year. Next slide, please. Okay, I've spoken to that. Can you open the document that I'm asking to open? Yeah, thank you. Just open the document, because I think it makes more sense. On the email, the one I showed you, can open up the presentation. Yes, that one, please. So, other members, yeah, then can you go all the way to the first tab? Go to the left. See the tabs down there. Start opening. No, you see where it says, no, just move the cursor to projected department and arch it down. No, where it's got open the headings at the bottom. No, George was there. Information system. Excellent. Thank you, Mr.
This one.
So to go all the way to the first tab. It's president. There you go. You can click on the tab. So remember, this is the first document that I compiled for you. It's been sent to you via the emails. This is going to be your document. Every time I do an analysis, I will also attach this document so that you can see that where I'm coming from with the analysis. So this document, as I said, we call it the first quarter opinions, which will go hand in hand with the first quarter financial analysis. The first step, it's a president's speech. So from the president's speech, what we did as budget analysts, we said, okay, let's look at everything that's applicable to the Department of COGTA. Anything that the president said about municipalities specifically, then we will try and drill it down. So we see that on page 4 and 5 of the president's speech, when we had, after the GNB was formulated, I'll just make an example. Can you see it says to achieve rapid, inclusive growth. You see, Honorable Chairperson, once you see that, and next to me, she will look again, she'll go to this document and say, okay, anything that the president has said, how is it aligned to the NTP? So showing when the president has to formulate a policy statement, it's with the reference of looking at the NTP 28. Can you just move down? economy is not growing, we won't talk to each other. So I just wanted to say it in a very high level. But if you want to time, I can just draft a document for you guys. Because usually when we do these kind of things, we don't just slash, we need to sit down, research on them, look at what it means, and drive it for the portfolio committees. And not to just say, okay, if you're inclusive and go, it's everything that's going. It depends on where you are driving the whole narration to. So I just stop here.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Members, we're now going to move on to the committee bill processes. And we've got Ms. Benjamin who's going to take us through the processes in a presentation. Just for your information, we have 3 bills coming up for COGTA: the Public Service Amendment Bill, Public Administration Management Amendment Bill, and the Municipal Demarcation Bill. So all 3 will be, I will attend a briefing on Friday with the NCOP, where they will debrief us on this, and then we will proceed with it. Over to you, Ms. Benjamin.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Okay, let me just say that here. Good morning, honorable members. I hope you're all good, and these sessions are assisting you to understand your respective roles as members of this committee. Now, we've heard from Mr. Zunza. He spoke about the core mandate of the committee. And I just want to use that as my launching pad. We've heard about the committee's role in oversight, in public participation, and I want to zone in on the blue text, which is lawmaking. And it's bill processing must be seen in the context of lawmaking. Now, every honourable member has a very also responsibility, as well as a very sobering responsibility to enact legislation. So you have a constitutionally given power to make laws. So let's not forget that important power to make laws that will impact the lives of people, laws that will join the other myriad of legislation on the statute books and will be preserved for posterity. Now, it's important for everybody to move from the same page with regard to how a bill in general is processed. So it may be something that the returning members are familiar with, but let it be a refresher for them, and I'm sure the new members will appreciate a nutshell summary of how a bill moves from the point of a bill to eventually becoming law. All right. So, in essence, or basically, or in its most simplest form, every law starts off with need, right? It's based on need. What do you want to achieve? Or what legislative gap is there that needs to be remedied? And for example, you look at the line department, COGTA, may have identified something to do with traditional leadership, that there's a gap, that is split risk, or an obligation from national legislation which empowers the provinces to enact legislation with regard to traditional leadership. So that's your starting point, the need for a particular piece of legislation. And it starts with the department, most often, and we'll look at other ways bills can be enacted, and I'll discuss that a little bit later. So then there's going to be the process of bill drafting. That's where your drafters come on board with your policy makers, and there's going to be consultation. What needs to go into this bill? And once we have a draft bill formulated, and it's in accordance with formal legislative drafting requirements, it appears to be unconstitutional, then that bill gets introduced into the legislature. And that's when it becomes available, and this is where the legislature starts looking at this particular bill. And it comes in through a formal process called introduction. So the bill is introduced through this formal process of introduction by the relevant ABC that has championed that particular bill. So once the bill is introduced, there's a standing rule, and I suggest that honourable members do look at Rule 217, because it sets out the requirements before a bill may be introduced. So it's been introduced and tabled in the legislature. All members have been part of the sitting. You have heard a particular bill being introduced and tabled by a particular MEC. And then this is where the work starts for committee members, because that bill becomes referred to the relevant committee. If it's a COGTA related bill, it will come to the COGTA portfolio committee. And this is where you start becoming more hands-on with that particular bill. So if you look at the next slide, you'll see the blue text that says committee processes. So I just want to focus a little bit in this presentation on committee processes. Not right now at this moment. I just want to give you just an overview of the bill process, but we're going to focus on that. And then there's going to be a report that the committee does on a particular bill that is processed. After the report has been done, it's submitted to the House, and there's going to be debate in the House as to the merits of this bill, what different political parties' views are on this bill. And that's a very, very important part of processing legislation, the debating process. And every one of the honourable members have seen debates. We've had the appropriation bill, which was adopted by the legislature. So you've all had first-hand experience of the debating of a particular bill in the House. And after the debating of a bill, we want it to be passed by the House. And it's not always passed by the House, but this is the progression. Passing of the bill by the House. And then it leaves the domain of the legislature. And it goes now to the Premier. And the Premier has the responsibility in terms of the Constitution to assent to, that's basically approve the bill and sign the bill. And once it's been signed, it's signed into law, right? And it becomes no longer called a bill, but it becomes called an act. And then the act, the Constitution also goes further to say once a bill has been assented and signed into it, and becomes an act, and it must be published in the Gazette, right? So that's also part of the formal requirements of a bill becoming an act. It must be published. Any of you honourable members knows what happens with the act, the hard paper copy, once the Premier has signed it? Just take a guess. Where is it kept for safekeeping, do you think? Any honourable member? Where do you think the signed act is kept? Honourable Fish?
I'm sorry, I'm not listening.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay. It's kept in the Constitutional Court, right? That's where all the acts are kept in the Concord for safety. All right. Now, the kind of bills that this committee will have to process. Okay, I'm going to ask questions. Let's be interactive, because it's a learning process. All right. So this committee will see provincial bills. Yes. Oh, should be there. All right. So this committee is going to see provincial bills. So these are KZN legislature bills. right? And then you're also going to see parliamentary bills or NCOP bills. So these are bills that are passed by the National Assembly, and they eventually find a way, because they need concurrence by the province, they find a way to the NCOP, and eventually it comes to the legislature. So we will see provincial bills, and more often, the COGTA Portfolio Committee will deal with NCOP bills. Now, this committee, this is the bill processing that committee members must focus on this part here. You receive a COGTA bill as a committee member. What do you think is the first thing that you would need to do as a committee member? You've received, for example, the KZN Traditional Leadership and Governance Act bill. What do you think members, the first point of departure when you receive the bill, what do you think you should do? Honorable member? Read it. Yes. It's common sense, right? Read it. Yes, because if you're going to have a part in making law, you need to understand what is this bill all about. And if it's a very complex bill and a very thick bill, and you will get there, you'll get those many-page bills. So a shortcut, it's not a good thing to do, but a shortcut is you go to the back of the bill. Every bill must come with an explanatory memorandum on the objects of the bill. So the shortcut is not a preferred way, but just a shortcut, a trick. You go read the explanatory memorandum. It gives you a nutshell version of what the bill is about. So it's a good place to start, right? And then you also read in this explanatory memorandum, they have a clause-by-clause analysis. And a very short few lines about each clause. So it just gives you an idea as to what is this bill about. And then in this explanatory memorandum, it also has the financial implications of a bill. Now, a bill can be very good law. It may become an act, but if there's no budget to implement the act, all it will be is sitting on a statute book, not achieving what it is intended to achieve. So this aspect of financial implications is very important. We need to see, is there going to be sufficient budget to implement this piece of legislation? We don't just make law just to shelve it in the Constitutional Court. It has to have an impact and achieve its objectives. And then you would also look at constitutionality of a bill. And it's very, very important, honorable members, and this is where your legal advisors also come in to advise on constitutionality. Because as honorable members, you don't want to be part and parcel of supporting a bill that is eventually declared to be unconstitutional by the Constitutional Court. It will be embarrassing. So we always look at constitutionality. And then, this is something that we look as legal advisors when it comes to the content of the bill. We look at Schedule 4 and 5 of the Constitution. And Schedule 4 and 5 of the Constitution, what it does is it sets out legislative competencies. By that I mean the power to make laws. And Schedule 4 sets out the the concurrent provincial competency to make laws. So by that I mean, it sets out those areas in which national parliament as well as the province can make legislation. Now this is an important thing, and I want to explain why. Each different sphere of government have their own legislative competency, right? So we don't want to step into someone else's or some other sphere of government's legislative competency. For example, we want to do a provincial bill, right? And we want to do a land bill. Do you think we have the provincial legislative competency to enact a land bill? And Honorable Kunene says no. Do you have a reason why, Honorable Kunene? Yes, there we go. You hit the nail on the head. Land bills will be the prerogative of national parliament, right? And how do we know this? We look at Schedule 4, and we look at the list. They tell you tourism, environment, local government, provincial planning. Then you'll see, and you'll say, no, land is not here, so we don't have that legislative competence. So it's important to look at that. Now, you are expected to process a bill. I'm just using the example of the KZN traditional leadership and governance bill, right? It's an ordinary bill. And let me start to just explain that you will receive ordinary bills. The distinction is an ordinary bill and a money bill. Now, if you were in the Finance Portfolio Committee, you deal with money bills. Your appropriation bills, your DORA, anything that appropriates money, deals with taxes, levies, etc. Those are your category of money bills. And then everything else are ordinary bills. All right. So you will be dealing, as this committee will be dealing with ordinary bills. And the important rule that every member must recall is that of Rule 221, because it talks about the committee processing of bills. So Standing Rule 221. Now, that particular traditional leadership bill is introduced in the House. It gets referred to the COGTA Portfolio Committee. Then the next step is you want COGTA to come and brief you about the content of this bill, so that you'll understand the bill, you'll understand the purpose behind the bill, you can ask clarity-seeking questions, so that you are armed to process this bill, because you'll be armed with the understanding about this bill. And then this committee, in terms of Rule 221, is also expected to determine the manner of public involvement in the bill. Now, this is a constitutional requirement set out in Section 118 of the Constitution. It's also been entrenched in our standing rules, involving members of the public in making laws, right? Or in having an input into the making of laws. And how do we involve the public? We can do this by way of newspaper notices to say that a certain bill has been introduced in the legislature, and we are calling upon you, members of the public, to give us written comments. And then you can also have public hearings, where honorable members will go to a particular district, meet with members of the public to explain what is this bill about, and solicit comments of the public on the bill. And that's a very, very important requirement. You can also do press statements. And what I need to just stress, and I'm sure public participation has also spoke to you about this, is that acts have been invalidated by the Constitutional Court due to lack of adequate public participation. You've seen Doctors for Life, Labosa, Mohale judgment. And let me say that the court didn't even go into the substance of the bill, of the act. What is it about? Just on a technical argument, public consultation, it rendered the bill, that piece of legislation, the act, unconstitutional. So it's a very, very important aspect that we need to bear in mind in processing bills. Now, in the actual public hearing, and Honorable Chairperson, maybe just to mention this as well, we find that as honorable members are sitting in committee on a particular bill with members of the public, it's important to be able to sit and listen to what the public has to say, but it's also important to guide members of the public. And I say this for this reason, and I'm sure the returning members have seen this. Public hearings become an opportunity for members of the public to raise service delivery concerns. And it helps us to sort of sidetrack the public or the purpose of the public hearing. It is important to note down the service delivery challenges, because we cannot be blind to those things. But it's also important to guide the members of the public. And how we do this is, we ask members of the public to ask the question, and then also to tell us whether they are in support of that particular bill or not. And if they are not in support, which particular provision in this bill do they have a problem with, and why? And if they would like to, if they want it to be changed, how would they like that particular provision to read? And I say this because when this committee comes back, we have to do something called a negotiating mandate that goes to the national, the NCOP. And we have to structure the mandate on the basis of this particular section. This is our concern, our concerns as raised by the members of the public, and the NCOP expects us to submit a proposed draft amendment. How would you like that particular section to read? So that is why we sort of guide the public hearings. What's your problematic section? And members of the public, what would you like to see in that section? It makes the job of this committee easier when we're compiling our negotiating mandate report that goes to the NCOP. Now, I also need to stress that to hold a public hearing it involves many logistical items. And we need to adequately plan for these public hearings. We need to timelessly secure the venues. And we know that it's expensive to get venues, so we want to try and use government venues. And even there's a demand for it. So that's why we need to plan in advance for these kind of things. There's also SCM processes involved, because you've got to get published newspaper notices published. And we've got to publish them timelessly. And the Concord has said in numerous judgments that 7 days before a public hearing notification, 7 days before the public hearing will be adequate notification. So if we have a public hearing and we change the venue and we publish the newspaper notices 2 or 3 days before the public hearing, we're going to run foul of meaningful or proper notification. Right? So we need to bear this in mind. We can't change venues at the last minute because we're running into legal challenges as well. And let me just add that when we read these Concord judgments, Constitutional Court judgments, the court went down even to nitty-gritty. They looked at, in the scrutiny of Section 118 compliance, they even went down to the summaries of the bills, were they in official languages, were there taxis provided for people at the public hearings? Was there proper record keeping at the public hearings? Was there attendance registers and all of those kind of nitty-gritty? So that's the view or the attitude of the Constitutional Court in assessing public. What happened here? Yeah. My apologies. All right, let's just go on. Now, when we had our public hearings, if you just follow my train of thought, we had our public hearings, members of the public have given us comments. Now, as a committee, we've got to sit and deliberate based on what the members of the public have said, right? And then we draft a public consultation report. And this would be the report. Thank you. All right. And let me just advise honorable members that you have the power to propose amendments to a particular bill based on the comments received, except minor bills. But ordinary bills, you have the power, and when we have a lawmaking function, you may propose amendments to bill. And then you have to deliberate. So after due deliberation on the bill, as a committee, you have to adopt the committee report, which will go to the House. And then when you report to the House, you recommend approval of the bill with or without amendments. You can also recommend a redraft of the bill, or you can reject the bill altogether. Right? You have that power. And there is a time limit for processing of the bill by this particular committee or all committees in the legislature. And Rule 224 of the Standing Rules sets out an 18-month time limit after introduction in which to wrap up your committee work in processing the bill. And if you don't finish your work in 18 months, you've got to do an interim report as a committee to the House, setting out your progress, why have you delayed in processing the bill, and what's your expected time frame for completing that bill. And that must be within 6 months of the interim report. So it's not an open-ended processing of bills. And then, as I mentioned to you previously, the bill processing, the flow chart. The next step after you do your report to the House will be debate in the House on the bill, the passing of the bill or the rejection of the bill, assent and signature of the Premier, and it becomes an act. Now, the next type of bill that this committee will see a lot of is your NCOP bills, right? And this is the language used in NCOP bills are that of mandates. Negotiating mandate, final mandate. So when you hear we need to submit the negotiating mandate, you know we're talking about NCOP bills. And these are bills by national parliament that have been passed by the National Assembly, refer to the NCOP refers it to the Speaker refers it to the relevant committee, and we get NCOP bills. Now in March of this year, the COGTA Portfolio Committee dealt with an NCOP bill called the Independent Municipal Demarcations Authority bill. And we did public hearings, and we did a negotiating mandate. A report was sent through to the NCOP, but it stopped there. The NCOP took a decision that bill would be deferred to this current administration. And just to report that when the NCOP had met, they decided to revive this Independent Municipal Demarcations Authorities bill. So at the moment, there's nothing for the committee to do in terms of INDA. It's still there with the NCOP, but we should hear soon as to whether we would be required to do final mandates. All right, so what happens is, NCOP bills, there's a particular format. There's a legislation called Mandating Procedures of Provinces Act, right? So it tells you what sort of mandate, what's the format of the mandate that has to go to the NCOP. So we don't really have to worry too much about that. It's a prescribed format. But what the negotiating mandate does, what I need to say is that this committee, not the House, this committee does the negotiation, confers the negotiating mandate in respect of the bill. So that is why it's important for this committee to understand negotiating mandates. It's conferred by the committee. And then what negotiating mandate does is it sets out the province's position on the bill. And it gives guidance to the NCOP delegation on the position to take when the NCOP meets, right? And that guidance is whether to support or to reject that particular NCOP bill, whether to abstain from voting on the bill. But I always say abstaining doesn't say much as to what's your view on the bill. And you can also propose amendments to the bill as part of your negotiating mandate. Now, final mandates follows on from negotiating mandates. So this committee has given a negotiating mandate. It's gone to the NCOP select committee. The select committee sits, looks at all of the provinces' negotiating mandates. What are they saying? Should we make any changes based on the negotiating mandates received from KZN or Eastern Cape, whatever? And then they can decide to make some changes. So what we do is we request copies of the minutes of the select committee. We ask for the C list. We set up all the areas that have been amended, and we ask for the D version of the bill if they made any changes at the select committee level. We ask for all of that. Then the committee comes, meets again, and we look at, based on what was done at the NCOP level with regard to our negotiating mandates, should we give a mandate now, final mandate, in support of this bill or not? or do we reject it? And in some instances, we had environmental committee rejected the National Forest Fires Bill, because when KZN sent comments and proposed amendments based on public comments, and they were good amendments, they were ignored. So to express its displeasure, the House rejected the National Forest Fires Bill, so that power is there. So after we give the final mandate, it normally is also the final and voting mandate, and that's conferred by the House. We do a report as a committee, it goes to the House will be the one, and the Speaker signs the final mandate, whether the provincial delegation must vote in support of the bill, or abstain on voting on the bill, or reject the bill. And in a nutshell, that's what your NCOP bill process is like. I'm just going to touch on one last thing, and this is called committee bills processing. Now remember, I did tell you that provincial bills can come and be introduced by the NEC of a particular department, right? And you also know that the Constitution allows this committee or committees of the legislature to also introduce and initiate and prepare legislation. You can do that as a committee. So I hope we can make history at some point. I told the other committee as well, it would be nice to do a committee bill. And then also a member of the legislature. So any of the honorable members here, if you feel very strongly about a particular issue not covered by legislation, you can also introduce a private member's bill. So I just want to let you know that there are other ways bills can be introduced, except the NEC for Finance obviously can be the one to introduce in money bill. And then there's a particular way that committee bills are processed. I'm not going to go into it. When you decide to do a committee bill, I will check you further on that, but it's in there, it's in on the slides, right? Maybe just to say that the committee must, before they introduce the bill, they need to do public involvement before introduction. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. I hope it was informative. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was indeed very informative. Before I move on to members' questions, I just have one or two. When it comes to public participation, like you said, it is so true that when we go on the ground, members of the public come forward with service delivery issues, and overall, even in their comments, show a lack of understanding of what we are there for. So I just want to find out from the public participation side, are we not going ahead informing the community what the bill is about before the actual committee goes there for the public participation? Perhaps you could answer that one for us. And then when it comes to these NCOP bills, and we confer the negotiating mandate to the House, has there ever been a case where the House proposes and adopts an amendment over and above what the committee has conferred? So I just want to find that out. And then when it comes to our public hearings, we've got 3 bills coming up. Is there legislation to say that you can't combine the bills in the hearings? Or is it legally correct that we have to do each bill individually in the various areas that we go to? And what is the minimum number of hearings that need to be held? That's for me. Over to members. Is there anyone else that has a question? Honorable Kava and Honorable.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Chair. I would like to know, what if the society wanted the bill to be amended and all the processes has been followed, but the majority party doesn't want that bill to be amended? What will follow is referendum or what, or constitutional court, what must happen? Thank you.
Well, for me, it's when we conduct public hearings, we need to not do it as a by-the-way exercise and not capacitate communities to understand the intricacies of the bill. How do we, because the bill is couched in legal terminology. How do we write it in a manner that they will be able to understand and also be prepared before the public hearings are held? What are the contents of that bill? Thank you.
Before you answer, one more question. Do we have the capacity to have online presentations unpacking the bills? So sort of an online public hearing where people can comment and make submissions. Because most people don't read newspapers anymore, and most don't even have the time to attend public hearings, but they are always online and can make use of that platform to interact with us. Thanks.
Thank you, honourable members, for those questions. All right. I hope on the public participation question will come on that one there. But I think if I recall correctly, there should be some sort of pre-hearing workshops in terms of the guide, right? So there's a guide on public participation in the sector. And the Concord has even used that to audit public hearings. So, but we'll speak more, our public participation practitioner will speak more about that. And the other question of negotiating mandate to the House, and you provided, or you asked whether they can be, okay, negotiating mandates don't go to the House at all, right? It's completely a decision by the committee. So the House doesn't come in on negotiating mandates at all. But when it comes to final mandates, yes, we make a recommendation as a committee to the House. And then there's going to be voting, you know, and the voting will determine the outcome. As to whether there can be amendments, further amendments, and just assist me here on the standing rules, whether they can recommit the bill back to the committee. On further amendments, I'll check that part. I just want to check the standing rules. I don't want to mislead members on that particular thing, especially with regard to amending by the House. Bills by the House, all right? All right. And then we spoke about 3 bills coming up. Can't they be combined in public hearings, whether there was any sort of legal prohibition on that? Let me say that it has been done before because of saving of costs. But I would like to caution and say that it depends on the nature of the bill. Because remember, there's a certain stakeholder that's being attracted in respect of the bill. So you might have an audience, for example, the Upstream Petroleum Resources Development Bill. You might have a particular audience. There are people who want to enter into the petroleum resource production, or the extraction part of it. And then you might get coupled with a bill that impacts people on a more basic level. So you might not be able to get your right audience, unfortunately. So that's one of the things you need to guard against. And also becomes tiring for members of the public to get, especially depending on the nature of the bill, 3 bills of different contents just being bombarded with that. Makes it difficult to process. So we'll just be conscious of that. But not to say it can't be done. It just depends on the type of bill we're dealing with and the complexities. All right. And then you asked about the minimum number of hearings to be held. I don't think there's a minimum. It's based on the nature of the bill again. For example, if there's a one-line amendment that really doesn't impact members of the public it's probably a technical amendment. You may even choose not to go out in public hearings. Right? So it's based on nature of the bill. But if it involves the public, I think you'll be guided here by PPP as well, as your researcher, and as to where to have it. So you'll determine now, okay, we're going to do it in so many districts, and that's how you and you'll also balance the cost factor as well. But I would suggest maybe 3 or 4. I just but you can come in. Is that too much? Oh, okay. Based on that, all right. So to combine it, all right. Then was a question, if society wants a particular bill to be amended, but the majority party does not want that bill to be amended. All right, it's a multifaceted question, right? If we're talking about a bill that's already there, that has come from a department, and you went on the public hearings, and now people have made comments. It's up to this particular committee to apply your minds, right, as a committee, as to whether you want to support the bill, etc. And unfortunately, or this is how it works, democracy, it works on the majority of the members. If they vote in favor of the particular amendment, it will be carried through. But just to say that the standing rules also makes provision for the views of people who are seen to be in the minority views on a particular matter. They can be expressed and recorded in that report, and for the purposes of stimulating debate in the House. Right? So that's when it comes to legislation that's already there. Now, remember I told you about committee bills and also talked about private member bills. So if you feel strongly enough as a party that there is a gap and people are calling for this type of legislation, by all means, the provision is made there in the Constitution for you to try to introduce a particular legislation that meets the needs of people. And I see there was a comment by Honorable Kaleni about public hearings not being a tick box exercise. People must be empowered on the intricacies of the law. And I think that's very, very important. Because I know sometimes when we're under time frames, we tend to just have public hearings. But I think we do try, and on the committee level, with regard to the support staff, to make sure that when we at the public hearings, to break down the bill when we present, and also to answer questions for clarity in that way. But I also think the departments as well, as the champions of the bill, have a role to play with regard to road shows and reaching out and engaging with the community when developing this kind of legislation. And let me hand over, Honorable Chair, with your permission, to the PPP.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable members, my part was about providing free public hearing workshops. As public participation, Section 108 is very specific when it comes to public participation and the facilitation of the public involvement. But you get a time where the bills are sent to the legislature within a short space of time, and the legislature doesn't get enough time to actually ensure that we provide free public hearing workshops before the hearings. Most times we get like 3 weeks before the public hearing, but it doesn't give us enough time for us to conduct those. Plus, Mr. Doe would say it doesn't have enough money, it's a budget issue, so as the committee will need to make a provision for that as well. But all in all, in terms of Section 108, we should be providing those. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think you forgot about the aspect of taking this online.
Thank you, Chair. It actually used to happen during COVID. We've had public hearings in COVID time where we wouldn't be able to hold face-to-face meetings. Those were done via Teams. And as the legislature, we've now really provided hybrid sessions, as well as we have a WhatsApp line where communities can actually not even using their own data and what have you, because of the arrangement that we have with NTN. It happens even during the sector parliaments where they actually can view our parliament and the public hearings and can make inputs, those that are inputted into the committee. Thank you, Chair.
Just to add on what Chairperson, when it comes to finance bills, the money bills, the appropriation bills, we've had online public hearings, and but I think it's subject to a balancing act as well, because we don't want members of the public who do not have access to technology to feel excluded. So that is why we do have the online ones, but we would like to also to go to communities. And I think maybe another thing is also to use community radio stations and become a little bit more innovative in how we reach people as well. And just on the one more question about the amendments, Mr. Zuza just pointed out to me Rule 228 of the standing rules, which deals with amendments proposed before the bill is passed by the House. Right? So a member may propose amendments to a bill during or at conclusion of the debate of the bill, right? Before the House decides on the bill. So there is provision for that. We can even look further into the standing rules.
Thank you so much. That's exactly what I was looking for clarity on. When it comes to the public participation, I agree it has got to be done both ways, on the ground and online. So I know that you mentioned you have had it on Teams, but what about a public platform? When I say not a public hearing, but advertising the bill, unpacking it in little videos on your COGTA Facebook page, things like that. Have we done that before?
That's a communications aspect, Chair. I'm not sure if Mr. Newman can come through there, but we do make advertisements, and there's a link that is provided on Facebook and YouTube where members can actually, it's just that I'm not sure whether the data-free aspect comes into that when it comes to YouTube and Facebook. But regarding any other thing like public hearings that we have provided, the free data link is provided. We think our Mr. Chairman can add on that. Thank
you, Chairperson and members. What we normally do is that when we have public hearings, we post the adverts on our social media platforms, legislative social media platforms, as well as on the website. And when we also those public hearings, including committee meetings, we stream them live on our social media platforms. It's how we facilitate public access to committee activities.
Honorable Fraser.
Thank you, Chair. I also wanted to make a comment on the matter at hand. I think as this committee, we have the right to sit and check the focus on the incoming 3 days that you said we are about to tackle in this committee. We'll check who is it that we are targeting, because we cannot come up with one way of doing it. That will assist. So I wanted to say it with that to the committee, the chair will lead us on that one. That will be the first one. Then each of the allowed to propose that we take the next items, then have discussions afterwards as per our adopted agenda. Thank you.
Noted, Honorable Fraser, we are running behind time. I think I'm going to hand over to Mr. Zuza. You could take us to the next presentation. And then thereafter, Mr. Ndusani with your presentation. And then that will take us to our final round of questions. So please just make note of them, and then we will adjourn. Thanks. Mr. Nzuka.
Trying to share the end of term 2019 to 2024. Chair, definitely this one is not going to take long. It is a legal report that explains what the previous committee dealt with, and part of the information are statistics that we do not need really to go through. And I do not need to go through the introduction. What I've said suffices, and also the good background, because it covers what we have been covering in terms of the mandate. I will start with item 3, the priorities that the previous committee was focused on. The previous committee monitored the revenue management for municipalities as they spoke to financial sustainability, and it had a priority that focused on water management, that was looking at water and sanitation and water infrastructure plan. It also focused on the implementation of the Back to Basics program. It focused on municipalities under administration, monitored municipalities' annual reports, which is where Section 132 hearings were being held. It then monitored the issue of support by COGTA and Treasury to municipalities. We spoke to capacity building of municipalities. The other priority was on the functionality of the disaster management centers, the implementation of the DDM, and the committee also prioritized visits to traditional councils. And at the time of the advent of COVID-19, the committee was seized with the monitoring the recovery plan that spoke to COVID-19. The next table is what when Nation presents at the committee meeting will cover in terms of the alignment. But at the previous term, the committee was satisfied that the departmental plan was aligned to the NDP. It was aligned with the PGDP, which will now be called the MTDP, Medium Term Development Plan. It's no longer referred to as the PGDP. The committee was also satisfied that there was alignment with the departmental strategic plan as well as the APP. In terms of Goal 4, which spoke to strategic infrastructure, the committee looked in terms of priorities at what was currently happening. There is that column that speaks to the baseline or the situational analysis. And at the time, that is what was taken from the department, from the provincial growth and development plan, reflecting what was obtained in the province. And the department was saying that the local government white paper developed a vision of local government as key component of developmental stage. And then EP made it clear that meeting the transformation agenda for local government requires a much higher and more focused intergovernmental commitment towards creation of more functional municipalities. And what the committee then focused on in terms of that situational analysis was what the department was going to do. That is what is termed the interventions, the column that spoke to interventions. The department intended implementing KZN integrated waste management plan to develop municipal capacity building in waste and environmental management, to ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation. I will not go to that detail with the rest of the goals. I was just making use of this one as an example
what it is that informed the priority of the committee. And then the committee said what it was going to do regarding that Boardroom was to monitor the implementation of the Building to Basics program through receiving progress report from the department. So basically all this change is speaking to the bullets that are now reflecting on the screen. Watch the information that speaks to those priorities, which is covered in the table. The next one was speaking to environmental sustainability, where the committee intended to monitor the functionality of municipal disaster management centers and also look at the availability of disaster management plans. That is what the previous committee was monitoring as part of its oversight work in the previous term. Similarly, Chapter 6 of the NDP that speaks to integrated and inclusive rural economy. The committee was monitoring the implementation of the KZN Water Master Plan and the implementation of the water acceleration projects. Basically, members, all these priorities, when the committee agreed to them, it was in the understanding that they will remain as priorities for oversight up until the committee is satisfied that the department has delivered against them. Hence, they remained the same for the whole term. And at this stage, most of them, if not all of them, they still remain relevant. The next part is mainly reflecting who the committee engaged with as part of its work, and that spoke to the department, the municipalities, the Provincial House of Traditional and Cohesion Leaders, SALGA, and the government departments. Experiencing the freeze again. Apologies for this. Thank you, Mr. Badis. In the interest of time, I will use Mr. Badis' gadget. The next part of the Indicasa report is speaking, is just reflecting who were the members during the term. And it also reflects on the department who was the MEC and the PIO and HOD. And part 6 is then reflecting on the committee performance. Reflecting that at the beginning of the term, the department appeared before the committee to table their 5-year stretch plan, with the priorities, and those were then used by the committee to identify the committee's own oversight priorities. The next part is then the detailed information data that speaks to the meetings and oversight visits and stakeholder engagements that the committee had during the term, and are reflecting how many had been planned to be held and how many were actually held and the dates thereof. And the next table then is reflecting on the actual oversight visits and indicating to which areas those oversight visits took place from the financial year 2019-20 up to the last financial year 2023-24. Just as an example, in December 2019, the trust year of the election, the new committee received the strategy, the turnaround strategy by municipalities that had received poor audit outcomes,
and those are within Kanyagute, which are inclusive of the district municipality as well as the locals of Kuba and the 5 towns. Those were the areas of focus, and in 2021 and 2022, we are also reflecting projects that were visited by the committee under the lawmaking process. The previous committee is reflecting on the bills that it processed. One of them being the traditional courts bill, the customary exchange bill, the municipal structures bill, amendment bill, recognition of customary marriage is amendment bill, municipal systems amendment bill, and with the empowerment programs, the committee is reflecting there on the workshops that the committee held. And the part 10 is reflecting on resolutions that the committee processed, 15 in 2021, 23 resolutions in the period 21-22, and 33 resolutions during the period 2022-23 financial year. The next part is the part that most committees in the previous term did not fare well with the issue of reporting in the House. When we started the term, we had challenged the committees complying, but that improved in the last year of the term, 2023-24 financial year, and we saw a flood of committee reports being tabled in the House. On the oversight impact, the previous committee is reflecting the achievements that were experienced through oversight work. The remuneration office in Brunei, even though that matter has not been concluded to its finality in terms of the third phase, but the department was able to have the provincial government prioritizing the payment of its enrollment. That resulted in the reduction of allocation regarding all other government departments, including the legislature, so that we were able to get that funding towards payment of its enrollment. The previous committee introduced a new oversight program, which is the Section 132 municipal hearings. Basically, honorable members, Section 132 of MFMA says the municipal managers of municipalities must table or submit to the legislature the municipal reports on how municipalities have considered their annual reports, and for the legislature then to deal with those reports in terms of its mandate. The committee then introduced the hearings where they identified those municipalities that had not fared well in terms of the audit outcomes. And the committee, as part of its process and procedure, invited the Auditor General, invited the NPC for KwaZulu-Natal and the HOD for KwaZulu-Natal, invited Provincial Treasurer, and invited the district municipality in which a particular municipality is located. The hearings were held, and the main purpose was to assist the municipality, be it through support of KwaZulu and Treasury, to come up with a turnaround strategy so that the municipality improves on its performance. That was the major introduction that the previous committee had, and it was the first benefit in the sector. When we are engaging with the rest of the legislators, we are not hearing them saying that they are having the same. And we have shared with them the experience from case to case. The issues that at the end of the term were outstanding are the oversight follow-up programs regarding the small towns rehabilitation program, which the committee had engaged on but not concluded. The committee also has not concluded the issue of the status of infrastructure following the floods that the province experienced. I think that affected about 5 districts in the province.
but what is reflected here was the program for the committee that was focusing on eThekwini and Uber. However, when we think the floods went beyond just those two. The committee had also not concluded the follow-up regarding the implementation of the turnaround strategies that had not fared well in terms of the audit outcomes and that actually received disclaimers. And also a meeting that is focused on engagements with the traditional matters, just excluding out of the rest of oversight. The committee intended to just focus on traditional matters, and that has not been achieved. The recommendations which the previous committee is presenting before this committee for consideration for take-up is the matter of resolutions, where the previous committee felt that the department was not taking the previous committee seriously in terms of implementation of resolutions. That is an area of focus, and those resolutions are not only limited to committee resolutions, but also SCOPA, finance, and certain parliament resolutions. And the recommendation is for the current committee to then also continue paying close oversight over the municipalities that are not performing well, so that those are assisted to come up with their turnaround strategy and implement them. The next part is oversight over the payback of Ufunduna, and also to consider program 4 of the department, which speaks to the traditional affairs. Chair, that is the highlight of the previous report by the previous committee.
Thank you so much for that. Over to our researcher for the next presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, honorable members and colleagues. I think Mr. Vishali has made my job quite easy because he has spoken to most of the items that I was presenting on, which are recommendations for the committee oversight work for this financial year in terms of overseeing the department in implementing their APP. This is committee priorities. It's a working document.
Calendar. Yes. You can just go to the meeting itself. The 9 o'clock meeting. Open it. Open it. The whole document. Open it. Yes. Open it. This. Open on. Sorry? This one. It's not this one. Oh, sorry, Friday, this one. Yes. Open that one. Open it. Show attachments.
Thank you, Chair. Can you proceed another member Kyle, who is still assisting with opening the document?
This one?
As I was saying, that I'm presenting a list of priorities, some of which are emanate from last year.
This statement.
Priorities that were not fully implemented by the committee, so they are new and the ones that emanate from last year's committee work. So the first one relates to maintenance of plans, where we are recommending that the portfolio committee monitor the implementation of maintenance plans by municipalities in terms of whether the plans are in place, the budget for maintenance is also in place, especially for infrastructure projects such as water, sanitation and roads, and overall maintenance of assets, of municipal assets. We are recommending that the portfolio committee must assess whether these plans are budgeted for, whether the asset registers are in place and are being kept up to date, and whether the plan in particular is implemented. The second item that we are proposing for oversight work of the portfolio committee is that is on disaster management centers and fire services, fire and rescue services. We say proposing that the portfolio committee must monitor overall functionality of provincial and disaster management centers and fire and rescue services to look at whether there is an adequate infrastructure in place. They have equipment and tools of trade, whether the centers are equipped with enough human and financial resources in order to deal with the impact of disaster. The third item is spend on grants. To monitor the implementation of municipal infrastructure grants by municipalities, mainly that is used to deliver on basic infrastructure projects. The fourth item is water master plan, where we are saying the portfolio committee must monitor progress on the implementation of this plan by water service authorities in the province. The fifth item is on interventions, where we're saying that we are going to provide support and monitor progress on the implementation of turnaround plans by municipalities that are placed under administration to ensure that they become functional. The sixth item is the one that was alluded to by Ms. Mshazi on section 132 here, to say that the portfolio committee, we recommend the portfolio committee must continue to hold municipalities accountable through their annual reports on section 132 hearings. Also, we are going to implement the process on implementation of one plans by district municipalities and metro. On the issue of provision of electricity, which is item number 8, we are proposing that the portfolio committee must monitor the rollout of electricity projects in the province that will include the replacement and repair of transformers, which is an ongoing program that has been implemented by the Department of COGTA. As item number 9, we are proposing for the monitoring of these development agencies to ensure their functionality. Number 10 relates to verification of exercise, which is an ongoing exercise by the Department of COGTA. We propose that the department monitors progress reports on this issue and receive the reports from the exercise that is being carried out by COGTA to verify the actual number of visitors and other matters relating to this process. On the item number 11 is community service centers and traditional administration centers. Department of COGTA currently has a project various projects on constructing new community service centers and the maintenance of the old centers thereof. The last item will be on the Back to Basics program, which is a standing item that was also part of the oversight plan for last year. We are saying that the portfolio committee must continue to oversee the implementation of this program in order to support municipalities to become positively functional centers of good governance. Remember, there are various ways that we are proposing that the portfolio committee perform this oversight. One will be through portfolio committee meetings where the department will be requested to provide reports on a particular item, in quarterly meetings or in any special meeting that is called by the committee. The second way that could be these items could be dealt with is through oversight visits, where the portfolio committee can decide to embark on an oversight visit to a particular project to verify for themselves whether the progress that has been reported in meetings is indeed what is happening on the ground, and also through the forecast intervention study. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have one last presentation. Annual Oversight Plan. Over to you, Mr. Nzuza.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
These are the grades.
It's not really alert.
Whilst the chair is assisting honorable members to open the document, I just want to locate the AOP within the governance of the institution. The annual oversight plan is a document that firstly reflects what it is that the committee will be playing oversight on, the priorities. Secondly, it then indicates, it serves as a document that indicates the targets that the committee is expected to meet. For instance, how many quarterly reports the committee is expected to focus on, and how many other reports is the committee expected to deal with in terms of oversight work. It also assists in terms of us being able to cost the activities of the committee. When it comes to the budget, our budget items reflect how many meetings are expected to be attended physically by members, and we therefore provide for the cost that has to do with hotel accommodation in terms of members that may be coming from afar. We also provide for the SLT because members, they have to drive their vehicles to arrive at the meetings or the venues. We also provide for meals. Those three are the cost drivers when it comes to committee work. Those are the main things that we pay for, since we are not a delivery, a service delivery structure. We are paying oversight as the committee. So our money goes towards ensuring that members are able to travel to where they are expected to be. They are able to be accommodated because they are not at their homes within the provision of the policy, of course. And members, they are able to have body sustenance in terms of meals that must be provided. And in terms of the priorities, the proposal that is reflecting under priorities is what Ms. Besane has already touched on. Those are covered, but honorable members, ours is to present the proposal. We trust that when the committee meeting is held, the committee will be able to say, no, can we add this priority, can we remove this priority, so that the document becomes what members have identified, either through the presentations that have taken place or through understanding where the department is supposed to be going towards. I will therefore not read the priorities, and Debbie has just touched on that. The next table is what the team again is going to be finalizing in terms of the alignment. As I indicated, the APP of the department received 2 nights ago, and it didn't allow the team adequate time to track whether those APP objectives and priorities are still aligned with the MTDP and the NDP, but it reflects what was the situation in the previous term in terms of the alignment. The next part then is the oversight activities themselves. With Table 2 starting with the planning. First part is saying all committees must first plan before they undertake their work. What is currently obtaining is the fulfillment of this very same draft AOP, which reflected that the committee should hold their induction workshop under activities there. And this is the induction workshop that the committee is holding. And our target date, when we were planning before this term started, we were anticipating that committees will have all held their workshops by end of August. So, but the reality proved otherwise, and we will have to adjust this target and reflect end of October. We have not had these AOPs adopted yet, hence we are presenting them, and we still have time to adjust those targets. The next target was for this committee, the new committee, to adopt the AOP post the elections. And the target is that should be achieved by end of October, end of this month. And then that will say the committee now has its plan, which informs what it should be dealing with. The plan is also saying this committee must then also start planning for the next financial year, the 25-26 financial year, in terms of ensuring that by the time that financial year starts in April 2025, the committee should already be having their own annual oversight plan that will speak to the financial year. And the target is that by February 2025, that AOP should have been received as a first draft, and by the end of March next year, the committee must adopt their AOP for the next financial year. The second part speaks to oversight work, and it then looks at the consideration of various reports from the departments. The first part was talking to the budget, the work that has already been done, the consideration of the 24-25 financial year budget. We had the target of end of August, and that has been achieved. This committee did engage with the department and reported back in the House, and the budget was passed. So this team should be able to report that the committee dealt with that and was able to have the budget passed. The second part is the consideration of the 25-26 financial year draft budget. The first draft is expected to be received by end of October. Hence, the committee, in terms of the plan of the legislature, is that this committee and all other portfolio committees should be holding the stakeholder engagement sessions during the month of December and the month of January, where the members of the public will have an opportunity to receive presentation by the department, which the committee will engage with them. And the department, after presenting their draft APP and draft budget for next financial year, will then have a session where members of the public will make their inputs. Those inputs are assisting this committee in terms of the budget report to say the initial stage of processing the budget was November, December, January, and these are the issues that are informing the budget. The purpose of this session is to influence the APP and the budget. The legislators used to be said to be toothless. they cannot wait. You encounter in various areas of the province the situation where the MEC may have introduced a particular program or committed to introduce a particular program. Some MECs will even have short-term ceremonies wherein they are indicating that they are committing to introduce a particular program. At that time, some possibilities will be that the department has not budgeted at that time. It's only because members of the community are pressuring the department and saying, we are meeting, for instance, we do not have water. And the department says, okay, we will have a borehole in the area. Yet, the studies are yet to take place. This is a program through which the committee is able to say you committed or you promised to deliver a particular program for this community. Please now factor it in the APP and in the budget. So that is what this committee program is speaking to. The next part is then the consideration of the budget report through attendance at the finance budget hearing. This has been achieved. The next area that is in the plan anticipates the committee considering the quarterly reports, quarterly performance reports from the department, starting in the fourth quarter of 2024, the first quarter of 24-25, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter. The team yesterday did brief members on the fourth and the first quarter. And the committee at the meeting is then expected to add their views on those reports. That is what this party is speaking to. At the end of consideration of the quarterly reports, the committee must produce their own reports for the House to know what the committee has dealt with and what are the recommendations. The next part is then speaking to attendance or the tracking of resolutions. That speaks to the committee resolutions, COGTA resolutions, finance resolutions, sector parliament resolutions, and the multi-party committee resolutions in as far as they speak to the Department of Law. And at the end of each quarter, the expectation is that there must be an update to the resolution tracker. This is one of the areas that the Auditor General audits the committee on. There is provision again for one FIS focused intervention study to be undertaken by this committee. Towards that, the team will propose a topic, or the committee at the next meeting may propose a topic to say, let us focus on this particular area of service delivered by the department for our study as this particular committee. And that focused intervention study should be concluded by March next year through a report that will be adopted by the committee and presented in the House. The next area provides for the committee to be able to undertake oversight visits in order to verify what will have been reported in the departmental performance reports. And the target is that one per quarter should be held. It anticipates that those are linked to quarterly reports of the department, where the department reports on particular projects and programs being undertaken. The committee should then, influenced by the departmental report, undertake program to be visited for verification. The next part is speaking to the issue of fraud and risk prevention plan by the Department of KwaZulu-Natal, where the committee may call for the department to produce such plan so that the committee is assured that the department is able to ensure that there is no fraud that will take place, or if there is fraud, there are plans to deal with the fraudulent activities. The next part is participation in SCOPA hearings. SCOPA will be starting actually their hearings as from next week. But on the day that SCOPA will be focusing on the Department of COGTA, the expectation is that they invite the portfolio committee of COGTA and the members of the committee participate in those hearings. Similarly, the Finance Committee in November will be engaging with the various government departments, and the expectation is that if they are inviting the Department of COGTA for the engagement on the mid-year performance, the Committee on COGTA should be invited and must participate during those hearings. The next area is speaking to the Municipal Finance Management Act, Section 132 hearings on selected municipalities. We did not put any particular target on that, simply because that must be led firstly from the Office of the Auditor General on the conclusion of their audit in municipalities. The AG must then brief the committee, and the committee then at that time decides on the municipalities that will be engaged with. However, moving forward into the next financial years, the plan is that there will be standard time periods by when those hearings should be taking place, so that the committee, similar to SCOPA, similar to finance, know that this is the time allocation for those hearings to take place. The next part is anticipating that the committee will receive bills and is making provisions that quarterly the committee having processed bills, the committee must report progress regarding finalization of those bills, and also the reporting on the stakeholder engagement sessions. One of them that is going to be held in the month of in the period of December and January, to enable the stakeholders to engage with the committee and the department. The next part is speaking to hosting national parliament committees. I think this committee is one of those where there is now indication of an activity from parliament, and there is provision that the committee should be able to participate where the national committee comes to the province, and there must be a report that must be prepared by this committee indicating those arrangements. The issue of public hearings, there is provision for the education workshops, should there be bills that this committee assists with, and the reporting should be quarterly until the bill is concluded. And the next part that speaks to empowerment of the committee is reflecting the workshops that this committee should be having, and we are already having the initial workshops towards empowerment and planning of the committee. However, as we move on, there should be a provision where the committee identifies an area of empowerment where the committee wants to be thoroughly workshopped on. The committee may also identify training on its mandate, and that is provided for in terms of the committee plan. And the plan also provides for the committee to be able to engage with a sister committee or to host a committee from any other legislature. The part that is visible through invisibility is the one that speaks to statutory. The report of the legislature as from the strategic planning session has reflected that the budget is not allowing for the institution to engage on statutories. In the previous term, even though we did not have the budget, we were having savings that to some extent served to cushion the institution in terms of the expenditure. However, this time around we are able to save simply because this is the election year and there are a number of activities that the institution has had to carry to introduce this current term. Chairperson, that is the proposed draft annual oversight plan, which, as I indicated, still needs the table alignment to be finalized for the committee to be able to adopt and implement. And with the workshop not being a decision-taking structure, we are requesting that we get indication of inputs so that the committee then holds a meeting. We will have included some of those and the committee will then be in a position to discuss and adopt the AOP. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Nzuza. Before I comment, just going to leave the floor open to our members. Questions from members? Can I take hands? Honorable Kaba, Honorable Kanene, just two. Over to you, Honorable Kaba.
Thanks, Honorable Chair. Realistically, I would like to know when the committee may be drafting the policy for preventing this fraud and corruption to happen, is it possible for the committee to invite one of you there to assist, because I can see that you are very eloquent when you come on this and you are assisting us. I just want to know that is it possible for the committee to invite you to help us in drafting that policy to prevent fraud and corruption to happen. Thank you.
Mine is on the legacy report. The general strategy on municipalities with poor audit outcomes. I think we need to pick that one up and check which municipalities consistently from the first year to the fifth year with those and actually focus on them to see and ask the question, why has there been no improvement in the bad things? If the municipality has been there from the first year and possibly the house, it's a matter of concern that these things are raised. What are measures that are in place to ensure that this year or this year we avoid or we submit reports to the house? I think the oversight plan is, the AOP is comprehensive. One appreciates that and also appreciates the input from Mr. Design. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kunene. My questions relating to the annual oversight plan. I do remember in Triple P, you were there present as well. Mr. Mshengo took us through it. We were able to remove what was not relevant now and adjust it. Perhaps we could do the same here now and then schedule an online meeting just to adopt that, or at our next meeting, approve the new AOP. Maybe we could just go through the targets and we could see if we need to amend anything. Thank you, Mr. Nzuza.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members. On the issue of the risk and fraud prevention plan, the committee will be asking the department to present the risk and prevention and fraud prevention plan so that the committee is satisfied that the Department of COGTA has got plans to prevent fraud and have got plans to mitigate the risk. And when the department submits that, the team, the technical support to the committee will analyze that plan so that they are able to give satisfaction to members if the plan is watertight, if the plan will be effective. That will then be presented to the members to enable them to engage with the department and point out when the plan needs to be further strengthened. So your support team, honorable members, will still be there to give that support. On the issue of the turnaround strategy in municipalities, poor audit outcomes, I trust that the team will be able to indicate as they have been receiving the reports. However, one can commit that we will request from the Office of the Auditor General that synopsis of those municipalities, especially those that have been receiving the very negative report, there is a disclaimer. Those are the ones of the major concern, and then we move to the next level of the audit outcomes, the findings that have got areas of emphasis. And we'll present that list to Mr. Badi will further clarify. He might be having it already. The issue of the measures to ensure that the turnaround strategy is in plan. Okay, now just covered that. The issue of ensuring compliance by committees. We are expected as from end of October to compile those reports. The document that we have prepared demanded for the PIPAR, we will be circulating it to chairpersons. However, in terms of the governance processes, the committee of chairpersons, when it meets, the expectation is that each committee chairperson must report on the performance of the committee, and that report is compiled for the committee by the team here. The cluster manager is the person that the chairperson must engage to ask, is our report already, which must go to the chairperson's committee and to the House. But prior to the meeting of chairpersons, we will be requesting those reports. In fact, it is a reminder because borders will be able to provide those reports for purposes of them appearing in the institutional order performance report that Mr. Kumalo presents and that the Secretary always present when she accounts to SACO. We have engaged with the UPARI to indicate what the reports should be expected by when. And that is what we circulate to our chairpersons so that they are not caught unaware when it's expected that they must report. Basically, it's the quarterly reports. All committees must report quarterly on how they've dealt with the quarterly performance reports of the departments. And if I could ask on
All right, thank you for the opportunity, members. I just wanted to shed some light. Last time when we had on section 132 hearings, that we selected 3 municipalities. So last time we visited these ones. I just want to just highlight that the ones with the disclaimer audit opinions were Mukanya Mude, which in 2022-23 financial year it had regressed from an audit opinion to a disclaimer. So which means the situation was worsening. That's the first one. Then we had the local municipality, which it was still in a disclaimer. And then we had multi-local municipality, which was still in a disclaimer position. And then we also had one Ushwati having regressed from unqualified with findings to qualified. So those were the ones that we focused mainly on, if we remember. So my suggestion, Chairperson, I'm just proposing as a recommendation, since we usually ready them in July. Yes. I remember you said the concept document that you're crafting for the portfolio committee. Maybe we have a mini section, one thing that you're hearing, where we just focus on the wanted disclaimer specifically. Because before we will look at the wanted disclaimer, the wanted qualified audit opinion. And the wanted qualified audit opinion included Uku, Uchungela, Abakulusi, Endumeni, Ufana, Nomtubatuba, Nettenhausen, and Mahlangeni. So we can leave the qualified audit opinions, the ones I just mentioned, and maybe focus on the disclaimer audit opinions, and maybe through COVID coordinator, chairperson, we send a request to the program committee that maybe we can have 1 or 2 or 3 days just to visit those ones with disclaimer. It's just a recommendation for the portfolio committee. Thank you very much.
Past 10.
Yes, that's right. It's those ones, then we just move a bit backwards. Because this is for 2 financial years, then I'll just move backwards so that I can pull through any rounds. Then I'll just cut the document, a nice small simple document for the committee.
Thank you so much for that. That will be really helpful. Mr. Zulu, just to tie things up, this annual oversight plan, the committee still needs to have a meeting to adopt this, am I correct? So do we need to make changes here as a committee? Or look at it and see if there's anything that needs to be adjusted before we adopt it in the next meeting? What is your suggestion? Just provide some guidance to us.
Chair, this is the last item, so I think members can spend just some few minutes noting that they still have to travel with. We can quickly go to the area that has got targets and we are adjusting those as we go.
Yeah.
For instance, Chair, the first one under planning, which I'm reflecting, we had a target of the first draft AOP by August, and then the finalization of the committee AOP by end of October. I think we should be able to meet that target, and then we may move to the next one. The next draft AOP for 25-26 is due next year, February, and the adoption by March 2025. That's a realistic target. And we then move on to the actual oversight work. The draft 24-25 APP, we had a target of August 2024. As part of the budget processing chain, the department did give them this week the budget before the committee passed it. So it was realistic we were able to align with the actual timelines. And the next one is then the consideration of the draft 25-26 APP and the draft budget for 2025-26. The timeline, even though at the end of November, realistically, we might not have an opportunity to have the department come to present. The timeline possibly will push it to January, the time by when we know that the committee will already be having the time slot in the calendar to engage in the stakeholder engagement sessions.
Can we move that to end of January then?
Thank you, Chair. The next part is speaking to the process that has been concluded, the budget hearings. What did not happen here was the attendance of the Finance Committee budget hearings. The actual institutional process was that each committee to meet on their own. We did not have one committee start with the finance committee. Maybe one needs to amend that so that when we get audited, we are not expected to report on what did not okay. So I want to just speak to the budget here on 11 rather than attend finance.
Just guide me on that. So we have a target of 1 day. Are we able to amend that target to 0? Because we didn't achieve it? Is that possible, or do we have to leave it and change the date? Is there still time? There's no time to do that. We've done that. We've passed that phase.
Sure, the reality is that the AOPs were not adopted when the term started. So this is what is yet to be adopted by this committee. So which means we have time then to amend the targets themselves or the actual output marks that are expected against each target.
So that makes complete sense now. Then can we just remove that portion? Or is this a template where you have to fill in?
I am amending it so that it speaks to the reality. The date is still applicable. The committee was able to evaluate the department on the budget. That's the budget. Passed. The next part is the consideration of the quarterly and annual reports. I think that I need to be guided by the team. The reality check is that the fourth quarter of the previous financial year, it will not have much impact if we are saying the committee must engage thoroughly on it. Rather, the presentation by the team and the launching. So which means that we cannot say the committee has consented since that is about 3 above and the launch has happened since. What the committee may realistically be able to consider and engage on would be the first quarter performance of quarter of development, the second quarter, the third quarter, and the fourth quarter. So it's only the previous fourth quarter performance approach which we need to separate that one is for launching and the rest can be.
That makes sense. Members, please feel free to contribute.
The next part, Chair, after the quarterly report, is speaking to.
Chair, I think perhaps can just go back on the 30 September issue. You said on the first quarter, I'm worried about something, Chair. 30 September, that's that one. Okay, let me go down. Since 30 September 2024, we should have done the first quarter. But now we just need to, when there's a portfolio committee, but we haven't set with the department. So we have it now that they achieved. I don't know when I'm going to have a meeting. So we need to look at the report.
So maybe you can change that to mid-November. If you could change the date, it will give us ample time to sit with the department and conclude that.
For the first quarter. And then the second quarter, Chair, I also had an issue as an analyst. Usually in January, chairperson, you come away from the long and holidays and all of that. And sometimes you don't get dates and perhaps because what happens is that we usually have stakeholder engagements that could not sit in December going into January. Maybe I would propose that you revise the second quarter one. Yes, that's right, yes. So you move to March, that's much better. And then maybe the others are still fine. We should be able to catch up with the others. But those are good tools worrying about temperature.
The next part that speaks to tracking of resolutions.
Mr. Joseph, before you proceed, we've staggered some dates there. Do you think that we will be able to achieve that by 30th of October? Do you not want to push those forward as well to November so that we are safe? We can stagger all the dates to bring us closer to the end of the year.
That's true. I think it's the third quarter now. Change the version to the third quarter.
Are you suggesting that we leave those as they are?
We can leave them and probably check this because we need a cash fund. It's supposed to be coming from the election.
Okay, I understand.
And next year things will normalize and go back to normal. That's why I left the next year's one.
Okay. But that's fine. You can proceed to the next slide.
The next part, Chair, is speaking to tracking of resolutions, mainly that takes the form of the administrative support calling for responses to resolutions. We've already held the multi-party oversight visits, and the report has been concluded by the team, which will have to go to the executive. This committee will then have an opportunity to ask the department in terms of how far in terms of responding. And we know that those responses will be good when we go to the TH. So it's an area that we should be able to achieve.
30th of October.
Yes. Okay. And the next one that speaks to end of March, it's mainly speaking to the fact that the tracking of resolutions is a border performance target.
Next one.
The topic for the FIS, the plan in terms of the draft is that topic should, the committee should have a proposal for that topic by end of October.
I think there's where we need to move it to the 15th of November or end of November. So we can only discuss that at the next meeting. So that will give us ample time. Sadly, such a kind of stuff.
Sorry, it's included in the priorities. I propose that the assignment other items can fall under.
Yeah, so we're going to start with disaster management. So we've got one. I think that's fine as it is. You can proceed to the next.
The next part, Chair, is on oversight visits. The provision is that there should be one per quarter.
I think that's fine. Do you think that we need to increase it, Mr.
I think there will be a problem, Chair, because we already lost in September. So let's count. The AP starts when we should be very careful with that one. you say 1 per quarter, it means there's 4 for the whole year. Maybe we need to move the word per quarter. You just say 1 or 2, and not say per quarter, because if you say per quarter, it means there's 4 site visits that it's going to hold. Was it done anything in terms of that?
It makes sense. Remove the quarter. If the budget comes to allow this.
That is what the committee will have to prioritize, but I can indicate that our committees do not have a lot in terms of the catering.
Plan better in hand with the financial. It's pointless sitting up on the side so you can't. So we need to get an answer on the budget that we need to fetch.
Mr. Zuza, if you put 1 there, we have up until January, am I correct?
No, January until end of March.
So I think 2 should be fine. If you just change it to 2, because what we can do is we can do an oversight with our meeting. So we save on cost. It's not going to be 2 separate items.
That is the Honorable Chair. The next part is the oversight over the implementation of fraud and risk prevention plan. And here is the calling of the department to produce that plan initially. So one should be able to suffice it by end of November.
That should be fine.
Committee should have been able to say for the fact that November ends on the 30th and March 31st. The next part is speaking to SCOPA hearings, and it is dependent on SCOPA inviting the committee or on SCOPA holding a hearing on COGTA. So, and SCOPA is meeting in October.
So I think SCOPA is a bit delayed. Do you not want to change that date to maybe end of November?
SCOPA will entail allocation of things. Is expected to complete their hearings by end of October.
Okay.
November.
That's fine.
So in a similar manner, Chair, the hearings for finance are in November. And it is also dependent on finance inviting the committee. The next part is anticipating that there are investigations that the department is conducting. And basically it says the committee must play oversight over those investigation reports. So without indicating how many, so that if there's an investigation, the committee is expected to call for that report to be brought to it.
All right.
The next part is an estimate in terms of the bills, because we do not know the total number of bills that will come from the COP, the total number of bills coming from the province. However, the provision is that at quarterly basis, the committee will report progress on processing the bills rather than reporting on numbers of the bills that are anticipated. The next part is on committee stakeholder engagement sessions. And it was anticipating the quarterly sessions. And it is the question that the member has raised that is linked to the budget availability and the timeliness thereof. And the proposal Chair is that since we are already in October, we know that by November, by December, January, we definitely hold one, and probably another one between February and March. So the proposal that we have to challenge. The next part is speaking to the report. Out of the stakeholder engagement session that is focused on the APP and the budget. That is the process that the institution provides for all committees to engage in, and the committee is going to be able to meet that target. The next one is dependent on the Committee of Parliament coming to the province, and the expectation is that the committee by end of March next year should report on whether there was any visit by a national committee.
Really, they are coming.
On Monday. I think that's it. Thank you so much for that. I'd like to propose that we call up an online meeting to adopt this. So members, it's imperative that you join that meeting because we'll need quorum in order to adopt this. It will probably take about 10 minutes maximum. Honorable Mandloka?
Thanks, Honorable Chair. I agree with you, Chair. The request is that after they have amended those inputs, they must send it to us before the meeting takes place, so that we know what we are doing.
Perfect. When do you think we will have this ready to circulate?
Before the weekend is over.
Before the weekend is over. Members, are we fine with having an online meeting on Monday? Is it too soon? Okay, can I have some proposals for time? So I just want some consensus so that we...
That's why.
All right, Honorable Mandloka and Honorable Fraser?
With the understanding that Mondays are party days, and we are proposing that we have it late because it will take 10 minutes and it's online, maybe at 5 o'clock or 6, depending whether we agree as members. But at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, it only takes 10 minutes because of the 15.
Agreed, it's only 10 minutes, provided we have a quorum on at 6 o'clock, and then we can just dispense with it in 10 minutes.
But why do you ask something that's due on the 14th? If it's due, if this thing is due on the 14th, it's the 14th. But we're not doing it Monday.
All right, no problem. I don't have a problem with us selecting another date for online. I just wanted to propose it here, so we get it out of our way, because we have a full week next week with the national COGTA, and sometimes we just forget about it and then we battle to get quorum for the online. Yes.
Maybe to my colleague, the other thing, this is a problem for us to work. It will mean to say that if we haven't approved it, we can't vote, we can't work. Because even those meetings for national that they are talking about, it must be part of our program. So, even they said, well, only 10 minutes. 10 minutes and then we are done with it. We know that already we have the AOP that we are going to work on, because we wait if we have enough minutes.
So I suggest we do it Monday, 6 p.m. Lucy, Monday, 6 p.m.
I'm not there at certain it's because we are expecting the joint forecast Sunday, Monday. So he's not sure what time we finish it. Those who are take time usually come and join the KZN members, and they for the joint forecast for 2 days. So if he's not there, you must accept his approach.
All right. Yes, Honorable?
I agree with that. Not available on Monday to the Commonwealth Network, where I states I need to be very poor.
All right. But we'll discuss it, and hopefully we can do it on Monday. If we don't have a quorum, then obviously we'll have to push it to another level. Please, members, I'd really like your cooperation in getting this done, because the work catches up on us, and then we don't find time to do this. So let's just try. Let's get this off from our list of things to do, and then we can proceed with other work that we have. Yes, Mr. President.
Chair, maybe to assist, if the members will be with the National Committee for a few days next week, will it not be possible to identify 10 minutes during part of that program?
Well, not everyone is going to be joining the delegation. We have members joining at different days, but we'll discuss it. We'll take that online and we'll come back to the committee. Honorable Mendoza? We can't take any form of decisions here. I just thought I'd propose it to the floor so we have some sort of consensus, because I don't want to just impose on you as well. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you to the staff.
Chair, my apologies. Can I just say one or two things, Chair, in closing, Chair, before you close the meeting? I'm sorry to just come in. Greetings once again, honorable members and chairperson. Chair, I just wanted to indicate to the committee chair with regards to the committee processes, especially administratively, Chair, as to how can we be best assisted when we are arranging certain things for honorable members, especially coordinating meetings and oversights, Chair. I just want to remind honorable members that when we do receive such invitations from national to participate in their oversight week, it is very important for honorable members not to neglect their original legislature committee work, because that takes priority over all other invitations. So as much as honorable members have seen the invitation, I'd like to encourage members to ensure that there are no clashes with your other respective committees. If you have meetings, scope hearings, oversights with your other committees, then those take priority, and the invitation from national will either be attended by those that are not clashing with any other activities on that week. So please ensure that you do not confirm on both sides. Do not confirm to me and confirm to whatever your committee has asked you to be available, because there will be clashes with regards to accommodation as well. And lastly, Chair, with regards to the accommodation, I strongly encourage honorable members when we do send out invitations and we ask honorable members to attend workshops, meetings, when they do confirm their attendance, please can we just say that I attend and confirm and I require accommodation, because no accommodation will be reserved for you if you do not indicate in time. We don't like to see honorable members driving to an accommodation facility only to find that their names are not there. So you need to tell us timelessly so that your bookings can be made, Chair. I think I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you so much for that, Bruce. And I just want to urge members, please let's just cooperate, provide the information that is required so that we have a smooth running of this committee. Thank you so much. Please stay for lunch.
Thanks, Chair.